I found birth control pills in my wife's purse while we were trying for a baby. That led me to hotel receipts, secret meetings, and a conspiracy that went deeper than just an affair. She booked a hotel room for her lover, but I had a surprise waiting that would destroy everything she built. My name is Alexander Ross. I'm 45 years old, and for the past 15 years, I built a software development company from the ground up here in Austin, Texas. We specialized in enterprise security solutions, the kind of systems that keep Fortune 500 companies safe from cyber threats. My business partner Douglas Powell and I started in my garage back in 2010, surviving on ramen and ambition. Now we employed 32 people and pulled in $8 million a year. Not bad for two guys who met in a community college coding class. I met Abigail at a business networking event 7 years ago. She was 34 then, sharp as a tack, working as a business development director for a mid-sized financial firm in downtown Austin. She had this confidence about her, the kind that turned heads when she walked into a room. Dark hair always styled perfectly, clothes that cost more than my first car, and a smile that could close deals or break hearts depending on her mood. We dated for 8 months before I proposed. Looking back, maybe I should have waited longer, gotten to know the real her instead of the version she wanted me to see. But I was 40 and tired of coming home to an empty house. She had a daughter, Madison, who was 12 at the time. Sweet kid, smart, nothing like her mother turned out to be. Abigail never talked much about Madison's father. Said he was nobody important, just some guy from her past who wasn't ready to be a dad. She got defensive whenever I asked questions, so eventually I stopped asking. Madison called me Alex, never Dad, and I respected that. I wasn't trying to replace anyone. I just wanted to be there for her, be the stable presence she needed. The first 5 years of our marriage were good, or at least I thought they were. Abigail's career took off. She moved up to director of business development at a larger financial company, started traveling more for work. I didn't mind. I trusted her. My business was growing too, demanding more of my time. Douglas and I were always chasing the next contract, the next innovation. Madison grew into a bright young woman, now 19 and studying biology at University of Texas. She still lived with us when she wasn't in the dorms, and we'd gotten close over the years. She was more honest with me than her mother ever was. Then, 3 months ago, everything started to feel off. Abigail became distant. She'd come home from work later and later, always with some excuse about client dinners or strategy meetings. She'd pick up her phone and walk into another room to answer calls. She started going to the gym at odd hours, coming back smelling like expensive perfume instead of sweat. I'm not a stupid man. I built a career on reading patterns, spotting vulnerabilities in systems, and my wife had become one giant red flag. The night it all started to unravel was a Tuesday in late September. Abigail had texted me around 6 that she'd be working late, another client dinner that couldn't be rescheduled. I'd heard that excuse so many times lately it had lost all meaning. I was in my home office, reviewing code for a new security protocol Douglas and I were developing, when I heard her car pull into the driveway around 11. I walked downstairs to greet her, something I always did. Old habits die hard. She was fumbling with her purse and briefcase when I opened the front door. "Hey, need help?" I asked, reaching for her bag. "I've got it," Abigail said, but she was already handing it over, distracted by her phone lighting up with another notification. That's when it happened. As I took the purse, something small and rectangular tumbled out, hitting the hardwood floor with a plastic clatter. Birth control pills. The pharmacy label was facing up, her name printed clearly across the top, filled just 3 days ago. My stomach dropped. We've been talking about having a baby together for months now. Just last week, she'd brought it up again over breakfast, asking if I'd be ready to be a father at 45. I'd said yes, absolutely. I thought we were trying. I picked up the pill pack slowly, turning it over in my hands. "Abigail," I said, my voice steady despite the thunder in my chest. "What are these?" She glanced down, and for just a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Not guilt, not panic, just calculation, like she was running through possible responses, weighing which one would work best. "Oh," she said with a forced laugh, reaching for them. "Those are for my hormones. My doctor prescribed them to regulate my cycle." I held the pack just out of her reach. "You never mentioned anything about hormone issues." "I didn't want to worry you," Abigail replied smoothly. "It's nothing serious, just some irregularities. You know how women's health stuff is. I handed the pills back to her, watching her face carefully. She met my eyes without flinching, her expression open and unconcerned. If I hadn't already been suspicious, I might have believed her. But I'd spent 15 years building security systems designed to catch deception. I knew a cover story when I heard one. Right, I said. Well, I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. Always, she said, kissing my cheek before heading upstairs. I'm exhausted. Long day. I stood in the hallway for a long time after she disappeared into our bedroom, staring at the spot where the pills had fallen. My mind was racing through possibilities, each one worse than the last. If she was on birth control while telling me she wanted to try for a baby, that meant she was lying about something fundamental. And if she was lying about that, what else had she been lying about? The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in the gym, the expensive new lingerie I'd noticed in her drawer last week. It all clicked into place like lines of code, finally compiling correctly. I walked back to my office and opened my laptop. I'm a software developer. I know how digital footprints work, how people leave traces of themselves everywhere they go online. If Abigail was hiding something, she'd left evidence somewhere. I just needed to find it. I started with our shared credit card account, the one she thought I never checked. There, buried among the usual charges for groceries and gas, I found something interesting. A charge from 3 weeks ago. The Driscoll Hotel in downtown Austin. $247. We hadn't stayed there together. I'd been home that entire week. My hands clenched into fists. The Driscoll. That wasn't some cheap roadside motel. That was the kind of place you took someone you wanted to impress. I kept digging. I spent the next 3 hours digging through our financial records like an auditor looking for fraud. And that's exactly what this was, fraud. A betrayal disguised as a marriage. The credit card statements painted a picture I'd been too blind or too trusting to see before. Beyond the hotel charge, there were restaurants I'd never been to. Expensive ones. The kind with prix-fixe menus and wine pairings. Capitol Grill on September 8th, $234. Uchi on September 15th, $189. These weren't quick lunches. These were intimate dinners for two. Then there were the smaller charges that stung worse somehow. Victoria's Secret, 3 purchases in the last month alone. She never wore any of that stuff around me anymore. Sephora, a makeup haul that cost more than my monthly gym membership. A boutique in the Domain, Austin's upscale shopping center, where she dropped $600 on clothes I'd never seen her wear. She was dressing up for someone, just not for me. I sat back in my chair, rubbing my temples. My first instinct was to confront her right then, storm upstairs and demand answers. But I'd built my career on being methodical, on gathering complete information before making decisions. If I confronted her now with incomplete evidence, she'd have time to spin a story, cover her tracks, maybe even turn this around on me somehow. No, I needed more. I opened a new browser window and pulled up our phone account. We were on a family plan through my business, which meant I had access to detailed usage reports. I downloaded the last 3 months of call and text records for her number. The pattern was immediately obvious. There was one number she texted constantly, sometimes 50 or 60 messages a day. The calls were less frequent, but longer, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, even an hour-long call last Tuesday while I'd been in the office. I ran the number through a reverse lookup service. It came back as a mobile number registered to Ryan Cooper. Ryan Cooper. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Benjamin's younger brother. My best friend's brother. The guy who'd been at our wedding, who came to our barbecues, who I'd watched football with a dozen times. The same Ryan who'd gone through a messy divorce 2 years ago and had been getting his life back together. Apparently, getting his life together meant destroying mine. I thought back to all the times Benjamin had mentioned his brother lately. Ryan's doing better. Seems like he's got his confidence back. Ryan's been working out. Looks good. I'd thought nothing of it at the time. Why would I? Benjamin was my closest friend. We'd known each other since college, built our businesses at the same time, supported each other through everything. The betrayal wasn't just from Abigail. It was from someone I considered family. I needed proof. Real, undeniable proof. Text records and hotel charges could be explained away by a good lawyer or a creative liar. I needed to catch them together, needed to see it with my own eyes in a way that left no room for doubt. I pulled up my contact list and scrolled to Jake Harrison's name. Jake ran a private investigation firm here in Austin, specialized in corporate espionage and infidelity cases. We'd worked together before when one of my clients suspected an employee of stealing proprietary code. Jake was discreet, thorough, and expensive. I typed out a message. Need to talk. Personal matter. Can we meet tomorrow morning? His response came back within 2 minutes. 8 a.m. at Mozart's Coffee. I'll be there. I set my phone down and stared at the evidence spread across my screen. Bank statements, phone records, hotel receipts. My wife was having an affair with my best friend's brother, and I was about to systematically dismantle whatever fantasy world she'd built for herself. But I wasn't going to rush this. I was going to be smart, patient, methodical. By the time I was done, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything. Mozart's coffee roaster sat right on Lake Austin, with an outdoor deck that overlooked the water. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a black coffee, and found a corner table away from the morning crowd. The October air was crisp, almost cool, unusual for Austin. Boats were already out on the lake, people trying to catch the last few weeks of decent weather before winter. Jake showed up exactly at 8, looking like he always did. Jeans, button-down shirt, aviator sunglasses, even though the sun hadn't fully risen yet. He was in his early 50s, former military intelligence, with the kind of bearing that said he'd seen things that would keep most people up at night. "Alex," he said, shaking my hand before sitting down. "It's been a while. How's business?" "Business is good," I replied. "This isn't about business." His expression shifted slightly, professional mask sliding into place. "Personal then. Let me guess, wife." I shouldn't have been surprised. Jake had made a career out of reading people. "Yeah," I said. "I think she's having an affair." "You think or you know?" "I know," I said, pulling out my phone. I showed him everything. The hotel charges, the restaurant receipts, the phone records showing constant contact with Ryan Cooper. "I need proof. The kind that holds up in court." Jake scrolled through the evidence, his face impassive. "Ryan Cooper," he said slowly. "That name sounds familiar. He's my best friend's younger brother." Jake let out a low whistle. "That's cold. How long have you suspected?" "Started noticing things about 3 months ago. Found the pills that proved she was lying to me last night. Did the digging after that." "Smart move. Gathering what you could first," Jake said. "Most guys come to me with just a gut feeling and a suspicious credit card charge. You've already got a pattern. That makes my job easier." He set my phone down. "What exactly do you want from me?" "I want surveillance," I said. "Photos, videos if possible. I want to know where they're meeting, how often, what they're doing. I want documentation that's so airtight she can't lie her way out of it." Jake nodded. "I can do that. Standard rate is $200 an hour plus expenses. For something like this, figure 40 to 60 hours of work, depending on how careful they're being. Could run you 10 to 15,000. "Money's not an issue," I said. "I want this done right." "It will be," Jake assured me. "I'll need her work schedule, regular routines, vehicle information. Also his. The more you can give me, the faster I can get you what you need." I prepared a file on my phone with everything. Abigail's typical schedule, Ryan's address and vehicle from a quick social media search, the restaurants they've been frequenting based on credit card records. Jake reviewed it all, taking notes on his phone. "One more thing," I said. "My business partner Douglas. He's been acting weird lately too. Distant. Avoiding eye contact. I need you to look into whether he's involved somehow." Jake's eyebrow raised slightly. "You think your partner knows about the affair?" "I think he might be helping her," I said. "Maybe giving her cover stories, I don't know. But something's off with him too, and I trust my instincts." "I'll add him to the surveillance list," Jake said. "If he's connected to this, I'll find out how." He finished his coffee and stood up. "I'll start today. Give me a week, maybe 2, and I'll have everything you need. In the meantime, act normal. Don't let her know you suspect anything." "I won't," I said. Jake paused, his hand on my shoulder. "Alex, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen hundreds of cases like yours. Whatever you're planning to do with this information once you get it, make sure you're ready for what comes next. Divorce is war, especially when money's involved." "I'm ready," I said. "I've been preparing for war my whole career. This is just another kind of battle." He nodded and walked away, disappearing into the parking lot. I sat there for another 20 minutes, watching the sunrise paint the lake in shades of orange and gold. It was beautiful, peaceful even, the kind of morning that made you grateful to be alive. But all I felt was cold. Jake called me 8 days later, while I was in the middle of a client presentation. I let it go to voicemail, wrapped up the meeting with a hospital system in San Antonio, and called it back from my car. "I've got what you need," Jake said without preamble. "Can you meet me in my office in an hour?" "I'll be there," I replied. Jake's office was in a nondescript building off Research Boulevard, the kind of place you drive past 100 times without noticing. Third floor, Suite 304, with frosted glass doors and minimal signage. Inside, it looked more like a tech startup than a detective agency. Computer monitors, surveillance equipment, filing cabinets with serious locks. Jake gestured to a chair across from his desk and pulled up a series of folders on his computer. "Your instincts were right," he said. "Your wife and Ryan Cooper have been meeting regularly, and they're not being particularly careful about it." He clicked through a series of photographs. Abigail and Ryan having dinner at a Chico, sitting close, her hand on his arm. The two of them walking into the Driscoll Hotel together on a Tuesday afternoon. Ryan's hand on the small of her back. Both of them smiling like they didn't have a care in the world. Another photo of them leaving the hotel 3 hours later. Abigail's hair messier than when she went in, her lipstick gone. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might shatter, but I kept my expression neutral. "When were these taken?" "Over the past week," Jake said. "I followed her 4 different times. Twice to restaurants, twice to hotels. She meets him during her lunch hour usually, sometimes in the evening when she tells you she's working late. The hotels are always afternoon appointments, 2 to 3 hours. He pulled up more photos. The two of them at Juliet Italian Kitchen, sharing a dessert, walking along Town Lake Trail, holding hands where they thought no one would see them, kissing in the parking garage of her office building. "There's more," Jake said, his tone darkening. He opened another folder. "Your business partner, Douglas Powell." My stomach dropped. "What about him?" Jake showed me a series of text message screenshots. I was able to gain access to Ryan's phone records through a contact I have. These messages are between Ryan and Douglas, starting about 5 months ago. I read through them, feeling sicker with each line. "Ryan, she's asking questions. Think Alex suspects anything?" "Douglas, he hasn't said anything to me. I'll keep him distracted with the new contracts." "Ryan, good. Abby's worried he's going to find out before we're ready." "Douglas, just keep your heads down. I'll handle my end." Douglas has been covering for them, Jake said, "creating fake business trips, giving your wife alibis, even setting up meetings to keep you occupied while they meet. He's been actively helping them hide the affair." The betrayal from Douglas hit almost as hard as Abigail's infidelity. We built a company together from nothing. 15 years of partnership, of trusting each other with everything. And he'd been stabbing me in the back for months. "There's something else," Jake continued. He pulled up financial records. "I did some digging into your company accounts. Douglas has been moving money. Small amounts at first, but it's escalated. Over the past 8 months, approximately $173,000 has been transferred from your business operating account to a shell company registered in Delaware." "What?" I leaned forward, studying the records. "How did I not see this?" "He's your CFO," Jake said. "He has full access to the accounts, and he's been careful to make the transfers look like legitimate business expenses. Consulting fees, service contracts, software licenses. But I traced the shell company. It's registered to Ryan Cooper." My hands formed fists. "They've been stealing from me." "Not just stealing," Jake said. "They're planning something bigger." I intercepted an email exchange between Douglas and a lawyer. "They're preparing to force you out of your own company. Douglas has been building a case that you're mismanaging funds, making poor business decisions. He's been documenting everything, creating a paper trail that makes you look incompetent." The room felt too small suddenly, like the walls were closing in. "He's trying to take my company." "With Ryan's help?" "Yes," Jay confirmed. "Your wife's affair wasn't just about romance. This is about money. Your money. They've been planning this for months, maybe longer. The affair gave them a way to distract you while they positioned themselves to take everything." I sat back, processing. This wasn't just betrayal. This was coordinated theft, fraud, conspiracy. They've been playing me for a fool while systematically dismantling my life. "I need copies of everything," I said, my voice cold and steady. "Every photograph, every text message, every financial record. I want documentation so thorough that they can't wiggle out of this with lawyers and lies." "Already prepared," Jake said, handing me a thumb drive. "Everything's on here." organized by date and category. I've also included affidavits documenting my surveillance methods, chain of custody for the evidence, timestamps on all photos. This will hold up in court, both for the divorce and for criminal fraud charges if you decide to pursue them. I took the thumb drive, feeling its weight in my hand. This small piece of plastic contained the ammunition I needed to destroy all of them. "What's your next move?" Jake asked. I stood up, pocketing the drive. "I'm going to finish what they started, but on my terms, not theirs." That evening, I logged into our credit card account from my office at home. Abigail was downstairs watching television, thinking I was reviewing code. Instead, I was hunting for a next move, and I found it. A new charge had posted that afternoon. The Driscoll Hotel, room reservation for tomorrow, Thursday, October 26th. $412. She'd booked it for her affair partner, probably planning another afternoon tryst while I was supposedly in meetings. But this time, I was going to be there. And I was going to make sure she had the ultimate surprise before I disappeared from her life forever. I called Jake. "I need you to give me a key to room 812 at the Driscoll tomorrow. Can you do that?" "I have contacts at most major hotels," Jake said. "What's the plan?" "She booked a room for tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to be there waiting when they arrive." "You want me there as backup?" "No," I said. "I want you outside with a camera. Get photos of them going in together. I'll handle the confrontation myself." The next day crawled by. I went through the motions at work, responding to emails, attending meetings, acting like everything was normal. Douglas kept his distance, which was fine by me. Looking at him made me want to put my fist through a wall. At 2 o'clock, I told my assistant I had an off-site meeting and left the office. Jake had texted me the room number, 814, not 812 like I thought. He'd already secured a key card through his hotel contact and left it at the front desk under a fake name. The Driscoll was Austin's oldest hotel, all historic charm and luxury. The lobby dripped with crystal chandeliers and ornate woodwork. I picked up the key card, took the elevator to the 8th floor, and let myself into room 814. It was a nice room. King bed with expensive linens, sitting area with a couch, minibar stocked with premium liquor. The kind of room you booked when you wanted to impress someone. I could see champagne chilling in an ice bucket on the dresser, 2 glasses waiting beside it. She'd thought of everything. I sat in the armchair facing the door and waited. Jake had texted that they'd arrived in the parking garage together 10 minutes ago. They'd be here soon. I didn't have to wait long. At 2:37, I heard the key card in the lock. The door opened, and Abigail walked in, laughing at something Ryan had just said. She was wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, her hair and makeup perfect. Ryan followed her in, his hand already reaching for her waist. They were 3 steps into the room before they saw me. Abigail froze mid-laugh, her face going pale. Ryan stopped behind her, confusion flickering across his features before recognition set in. "Hello, Abigail," I said calmly, staying seated. "Ryan." My wife's mouth opened and closed, no words coming out. Ryan at least had the decency to look guilty, taking a step back toward the door. "I have to say," I continued, my voice conversational, "you picked a nice room. Very romantic. The champagne is a nice touch." "Alexander," Abigail finally managed, her voice shaking. "This isn't." "We weren't." "You weren't what?" I interrupted, standing up slowly. "You weren't about to spend the afternoon in a hotel room with my best friend's brother?" "Because that's exactly what it looks like from where I'm standing." Ryan cleared his throat. "Alex, listen, I can explain." "Explain what, Ryan?" I turned my gaze to him. "Explain how you've been sleeping with my wife for months. How you and Douglas have been stealing from my company. How you've been planning to force me out of the business I built." The color drained from Ryan's face. He hadn't expected that. "Yeah," I said. "I know everything. Every hotel visit, every dinner, every text message. I know about the shell company, the money transfers, the whole scheme. You two weren't as clever as you thought." Abigail sank onto the edge of the bed, her carefully constructed composure shattering. "How long have you known?" "Long enough," I said. "Long enough to document everything. Long enough to build a case that's going to destroy both of you in court." I walked toward the door, pausing next to Ryan. "By the way, Benjamin knows now. I told him everything this morning. So you might want to find somewhere else to stay, because I doubt your brother wants to see you anytime soon." I opened the door and looked back at Abigail one last time. Divorce papers will be served next week. I suggest you get yourself a good lawyer. You're going to need one. Then I walked out, leaving them both standing in that hotel room. Their perfect afternoon ruined, their whole scheme collapsing around them. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I checked into a Marriott near the airport and sat in the dark hotel room, staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to call Madison, to warn her that everything was about to explode. But it was late, and she was probably studying for midterms at UT. My phone rang at 7 the next morning. Madison's name flashed on the screen. "Alex," she said, her voice tight. "Mom called me last night. She was crying, saying you found out about something and left." "What's going on?" I closed my eyes. Of course Abigail had called her daughter first, trying to control the narrative. "Can you meet me for breakfast?" This isn't a conversation for the phone. I'm already on my way to Austin. I'll be there in 20 minutes. We met at a Denny's off I-35. Madison walked in looking worried, her long brown hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing UT sweats. She'd always been a good kid, smart, honest, nothing like her mother turned out to be. "Tell me what happened," Madison said, sliding into the booth across from me. I did. I told her everything. The birth control pills, the hotel charges, the surveillance photos, the affair with Ryan Cooper. I told her about Douglas's betrayal, the embezzlement, the conspiracy to steal my company. I watched her face go through a dozen emotions: shock, anger, disbelief, and finally, resignation. "I knew something was wrong," Madison said quietly, staring at her untouched coffee. "I've known for months, but I didn't know how to tell you." My chest tightened. "What do you mean?" Madison looked up at me, her eyes red. "I saw them together in July. I was home from summer session for the weekend, went to the Domain to do some shopping. I saw Mom and Ryan having lunch at North Italia. They were holding hands across the table, and she kissed him. I stood there like an idiot, just watching, trying to understand what I was seeing. "Madison," I said softly, "why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was scared," she said, her voice breaking. "I was scared of what would happen if I told you. Scared you'd leave, scared of losing you, scared of what it would mean for our family. I know that's selfish, but I couldn't face it. So I just pretended I didn't see it, hoped it would go away." Tears started falling. "I'm so sorry, Alex. I should have told you." I reached across the table and took her hand. "This isn't your fault. None of this is on you." "There's more," Madison said, wiping her eyes. "About 3 weeks ago, I came home unannounced to grab some textbooks I'd forgotten. Mom was on the phone in her office, door closed. I heard her talking about money, about offshore accounts, about making sure everything was moved before you noticed. She said something about Douglas handling the business side while she handled you." My jaw clenched. "Did she see you?" "No. I left before she knew I was there." "But Alex, there's something else you need to know." Madison took a shaky breath. "I did one of those DNA ancestry tests last year, the kind where they match you with relatives. I got my results back in April." Something in her tone made my stomach drop. "And my biological father showed up in the database. 50% DNA match. His name is James Holloway. He lives in Houston, has a wife and 2 kids. According to the site, he's never known about me." I sat back, processing. "Your mother told me she didn't know who your father was." "She lied," Madison said. "I confronted her about it in May. She freaked out, told me to drop it, said James Holloway was nobody important and that digging into the past would only cause problems. When I pushed back, she threatened to cut off my college tuition if I contacted him." "What?" Anger surged through me. "She threatened you?" Madison nodded. "She said some things are better left buried, that I should be grateful for the life I have and stop asking questions. But Alex, that's not even the worst part." She pulled out her phone and showed me a message thread. James Holloway responded to my message on the DNA site. He had no idea I existed. He said he dated my mother briefly in college, that she disappeared without explanation after a few months. He tried to find her, but couldn't. I read through the messages, my anger building with each line. Abigail hadn't just hidden Madison's father from her. She deliberately kept him in the dark, denied him the chance to know his own daughter. "I want to meet him," Madison said. "I want to know my real father. But I need to know something first, Alex." She looked at me directly, her eyes pleading. "When all of this falls apart, the divorce, everything, are you still going to be in my life? Because you're the only real dad I've ever known. I don't care about biology, or whose name is on a birth certificate. You're my father in every way that matters. The tightness in my chest spread to my throat. This 19-year-old woman sitting across from me, dealing with her mother's betrayal and lies, worried about losing me. Madison, I said firmly, I'm not going anywhere. Divorce doesn't change what we have. You're my daughter, and that's not negotiable. She started crying again, but this time with relief. Thank you, she whispered. We're going to get through this, I said. You, me, together. Your mother made her choices, and she's going to face the consequences. But you and I, we're solid. Madison wiped her tears and nodded. What happens now? Now I finish what I started, I said. I'm filing for divorce on Monday. I'm also filing criminal charges against Douglas and Ryan for fraud and embezzlement. And I'm going to make sure your mother doesn't get a penny she doesn't deserve. Good, Madison said, her voice steady now. She doesn't deserve you. She never did. After breakfast with Madison, I drove straight to my lawyer's office. Richard Thornton had handled my business contracts for years, but now I needed him for something more personal and far more important. Richard's office was in a high-rise downtown, all polished wood and leather chairs. He was in his late 50s, gray hair perfectly styled, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. We'd worked together long enough that he could read my mood the moment I walked in. Alex, he said, standing to shake my hand. You sounded urgent on the phone. What's going on? I handed him the thumb drive from Jake. My wife's been having an affair with my best friend's brother. My business partner has been helping them cover it up, and they've both been stealing from my company while planning to force me out. Everything's on there. Richard plugged the drive into his computer and spent the next 20 minutes reviewing the evidence in silence. When he finally looked up, his expression was grim. This is worse than theft, Alex. This is organized fraud, conspiracy, breach of fiduciary duty. Douglas could face serious prison time for this. Good, I said flatly. What are my options? Richard leaned back in his chair. For the divorce, this is straightforward. Texas is a no-fault state, but adultery still matters when it comes to property division. With this evidence, you can argue for a disproportionate share of community property. Given that she was actively participating in fraud against your business, you have an excellent case. I want full control of my company, I said. Douglas's shares, everything. I want him completely removed. That's trickier, Richard said. You'll need to prove he violated your partnership agreement. But based on these financial records, you have clear grounds. He breached his fiduciary duty, engaged in self-dealing, and conspired to defraud the company. We can force a buyout at fair market value, or better yet, sue for damages that exceed his ownership stake. Do both, I said. I want him to lose everything. Richard nodded. I'll file a civil suit against Douglas and Ryan Cooper for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. We'll also file a criminal complaint with the Travis County DA. The evidence here is solid enough that they'll likely prosecute. What about Abigail? Can we freeze her access to accounts? We can file for a temporary restraining order, preventing her from accessing joint accounts or selling community property. Given the evidence of her involvement in the fraud scheme, the judge will likely grant it. We should also subpoena her bank records. If she's been hiding money in offshore accounts like Madison mentioned, we need to find it. I told Richard about my conversation with Madison, about overhearing Abigail discuss offshore accounts. How do we track that down? I'll bring in a forensic accountant, Richard said. Someone who specializes in finding hidden assets. If your wife has been moving money offshore, there will be a trail. Bank transfers, wire records, cryptocurrency transactions. We'll find it. There's one more thing, I said. Madison. She's Abigail's biological daughter, but I've raised her since she was 12. I want to make sure she's protected in all of this. Whatever happens between Abigail and me, I don't want Madison caught in the crossfire. Richard made notes. Madison's an adult now, so custody isn't an issue. But we can include provisions in the divorce decree addressing her college expenses, making sure Abigail can't use tuition as leverage. We can also set up a trust for Madison's benefit, funded from your separate property, that her mother can't touch. Do it, I said. Richard spent the next hour outlining the strategy. File for divorce immediately, with full documentation of the affair. Simultaneously file criminal complaints against Douglas and Ryan. Sue them both civilly for damages. Freeze all joint accounts. Subpoena financial records from Abigail, Douglas, Ryan, and any connected entities. Bring in forensic accountants to track hidden money. File for a temporary restraining order preventing Abigail from coming near me or the office. This is going to get ugly, Richard warned. When Abigail realizes you're not just divorcing her, but coming after her legally and financially, she's going to fight back hard. She'll hire expensive lawyers, try to drag this out, maybe even try to paint you as the villain. Let her try, I said. I have evidence, documentation, and witnesses. She has lies and excuses. This isn't a fair fight, and I'm fine with that. Richard pulled out his phone. I'm calling our forensic accounting firm right now. They'll start digging into your company books tonight. Trace every dollar Douglas moved. I'll also have our investigator start looking into Abigail's recent activity. Any large cash withdrawals, travel to offshore banking havens, anything suspicious. He made the call, then turned back to me. One last thing, Alex. Once we file these papers on Monday, there's no going back. Your marriage is over, your business partnership is over, and people you've known for years are going to go to prison. Are you absolutely certain this is what you want? I thought about Abigail's lies, Douglas's betrayal, Ryan's smirking face in that hotel room. I thought about the $173,000 they'd stolen, the company they'd tried to take, the life they'd tried to destroy. I've never been more certain of anything, I said. Then let's burn it all down, Richard said. Legally, completely, and without mercy. Monday morning arrived like Judgment Day. Richard filed the divorce papers at 8 a.m. sharp, along with civil suits against Douglas and Ryan for fraud and embezzlement. By noon, the Travis County District Attorney's Office had opened a criminal investigation. By 3 p.m., both Douglas and Ryan had been served with restraining orders and subpoenas for their financial records. I watched it all unfold from Richard's office, drinking coffee that had long gone cold. My phone exploded with calls and texts, from Abigail, from Douglas, from mutual friends who'd heard the news. I ignored them all. The forensic accountants worked fast. By Tuesday evening, they'd traced the full scope of the theft. Douglas hadn't just stolen $173,000. He'd been siphoning money for over a year, moving funds through 3 different shell companies. The total came to $417,000. Ryan's Nevada company was the endpoint, but there were 2 other entities in Delaware and Wyoming that Douglas controlled. They built an entire infrastructure for this, Richard explained, showing me the flow charts the accountants had created. Douglas would create fake invoices from these shell companies for consulting services, software licenses, maintenance contracts. He'd approve the payments himself since he was CFO, then transfer the money through the shells to Ryan. They were planning to drain at least another $200,000 before forcing you out. Wednesday brought more revelations. The forensic team found Abigail's offshore accounts, 3 of them, in the Cayman Islands, totaling $238,000. Money she'd been moving in small increments over 18 months, carefully staying under reporting thresholds. She was preparing to disappear, Richard said. Once they forced you out of the company, she was going to file for divorce, take half of what was left, and vanish with this offshore money. You would have been left with a gutted business and a fraction of what you'd built. Thursday, the DA filed formal charges. Douglas Powell and Ryan Cooper were arrested on charges of fraud, embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy. They each posted bail, $50,000, but the damage was done. Their mugshots were in the Austin American-Statesman by Friday morning. Benjamin called me that afternoon. My best friend since college, the man who'd been like a brother to me, sounded destroyed. Alex, Benjamin said, his voice rough. I don't even know what to say. I'm so sorry. I had no idea Ryan was capable of something like this. I know you didn't, I replied. This isn't on you, Ben. He's my brother. I should have seen something, should have known. He paused. For what it's worth, I told him he's dead to me. I won't be posting his bail, won't be helping with lawyers, nothing. What he did to you, to your family, it's unforgivable. I appreciate that, I said. And Ben, you and I are still solid. Your brother's choices don't change our friendship. I heard him exhale shakily. Thank you. That means more than you know. Friday afternoon brought the final pieces into place. Richard called with an update on Abigail's response to the divorce filing. Her lawyer tried to negotiate, he said. Wanted to settle quickly, avoid a trial. I told him absolutely not. We're going to court, and we're going to expose everything. Good, I said. There's more, Richard continued. Madison contacted me this morning. She wants to testify at the divorce hearing. She wants to tell the judge about seeing the affair, about your wife threatening her, about the offshore account she overheard being discussed. She's willing to put it all on record. My throat tightened. She doesn't have to do that. She wants to, Richard said. She told me you're the only real father she's ever had, and she's not going to let Abigail destroy you. Those were her exact words. I had to take a moment before responding. Then let her testify. If she's ready for that, I'll support her. By the end of the week, Abigail had moved out of our house and into an apartment downtown. Douglas had been fired from our company, his ownership stake seized pending the outcome of the criminal trial. Ryan had lost his job at the tech firm where he worked. Turns out having fraud charges in the newspaper is bad for employment. The life they tried to steal from me was collapsing around them instead, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction watching it happen. The divorce trial took place 4 months later, in February. The courtroom was cold, sterile, nothing like the warm life Abigail and I pretended to build together. She sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, looking diminished somehow. Smaller. The confident woman who'd walked into that hotel room, expecting her lover, had been replaced by someone hollow. Madison testified first. At 19, she stood before the judge with remarkable composure and told everything. The affair she'd witnessed in July. Her mother's threats when she discovered her biological father. The conversation about offshore accounts. Every word was measured, clear, devastating. Abigail's lawyer tried to object, to paint Madison as a confused young woman influenced by me. But Madison shut that down immediately. I'm testifying, my daughter said firmly, because my mother is a liar who tried to destroy the one man who actually cared about me. That's not confusion. That's clarity. The judge didn't hide his reaction. His expression hardened as he listened to Madison, as he reviewed the financial records, the surveillance photos, the documented evidence of conspiracy and theft. The trial lasted 3 days. In the end, the judge awarded me 92% of our community property. Abigail got her car, some personal belongings, and exactly 8% of her shared assets. The offshore accounts were frozen and awarded to me as restitution. The house, the investments, everything else mine. Furthermore, the judge said, looking directly at Abigail, given the evidence of fraud, theft, and conspiracy presented in this case, I'm ordering you to pay Mr. Ross's legal fees in their entirety. Your behavior throughout this marriage has been reprehensible, and this court will not reward deception. The criminal trial for Douglas and Ryan happened in April. Both pleaded guilty to avoid longer sentences. Douglas got 4 years in federal prison for fraud and embezzlement. Ryan got 3 years for conspiracy and money laundering. Both were ordered to pay full restitution, every dollar they'd stolen, plus interest and penalties. My company survived. Better than survived, it thrived. Without Douglas's theft, our profit margins improved immediately. I brought in a new CFO, someone I'd known for years and trusted completely. We landed 2 major contracts in March, another 3 in April. By summer, we doubled our revenue from the previous year. Madison transferred to UT Satellite Campus in Austin, moving into an apartment near campus. But she came to the house for dinner twice a week, and we'd spend weekends hiking in the hill country or catching Longhorns games. She'd also connected with her biological father, James Holloway. He drove up from Houston once a month to visit her, grateful for the chance to know his daughter. You know what the weirdest part is? Madison said one evening over dinner at my place. We were eating tacos on the back deck, watching the sunset paint the Texas sky in shades of orange and purple. What's that? I asked. I'm happier now than I was before. When Mom was here, there was always this tension, this feeling like something was wrong. Now it's just peaceful, real. She looked at me. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never, I said. You're stuck with me, kid. 10 months after everything fell apart, I stood in my home office looking at the framed photo on my desk. It was for Madison's 20th birthday party last month. Her, me, and James Holloway, all smiling together. 3 people connected not by blood or obligation, but by choice. Abigail had tried to destroy my life to build her fantasy. Instead, she destroyed herself and lost everything that mattered. Douglas and Ryan sat in prison cells, their careers and reputations ruined. And me? I was standing in a house that was finally peaceful with a daughter who'd chosen me, running a company that was stronger than ever. Sometimes people ask if I regret how I handled it. If I think I went too far, was too ruthless. I tell them the truth. I have no regrets. I protected what was mine, defended the people I loved, and made sure the people who betrayed me faced real consequences. That's not revenge. That's justice. And I sleep just fine at night knowing I earned it.